the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his cabinet members have held an emergency security meeting today after 26 tourists, mostly Indian nationals, were killed by armed militants in the Jammu and Kashmir region. It is the deadliest attack against civilians on Indian soil since the Mumbai terrorist attacks of 2008. And it's reportedly being claimed by the Resistance Front, a group that Indian media say is linked with Pakistan-based terror groups. Let's get more on this with Kabir Taneja, the Deputy Director of Strategic Studies Program at the Observer Research Foundation. Kabir, good to have you with us this evening. Now, the group that's claimed responsibility, they've called themselves the Resistance Front or the Kashmir Resistance, depending on what you read on the papers. What do we know about this group?
So there have been these smaller groups that have been popping up for a couple of years now. The Resistance Front is one of them. They're not supposed to be massive in numbers, and they're not very publicly visible. But they do tend to take claim of some of these attacks, and they're known to be basically proxies or fronts of the Lashkar-e-Taiba or the Jaish-e-Mohammed that are Pakistan-based terror groups. So the TRF is one. The other one is the People's Anti-Fascist Front, or the PAFF. And both of them have released propaganda in the past, especially online and on social media. And some of them have even brandished Western-made weapons that they procured from Afghanistan, we presume. So, you know, the idea of these groups is to basically recruit locally and portray themselves as groups that have been formulated inside Kashmir and are basically anti-government and anti-military in their viewpoint. You know, the main idea basically is that they minimize the linkages that they have with groups back in Pakistan, while continuously maintaining financial and ideological linkages while conducting these attacks.
Yes. What is the main motivation behind this attack that's been described by Prime Minister Modi as a heinous one?
The main motivation is to instill fear. Look, Kashmir has been looking at a level and semblance of normalcy for quite some time now. Tourists have been flocking back to the state. The economy at least there are attempts to revive and restart the economy. It's becoming more and more popular with tourists, specifically from within India. These attacks are designed to disrupt that. And the second part is, of course, I think these attacks aim to feed into a communal narrative in India that is pitching Hindus against Muslims, because most of the people who have been killed are from the Hindu majority faith. So there are multiple ideations of why these attacks have taken place and what are the meaning behind it. The main idea is basically to cause chaos and deliver a setback to any kind of economic normalcy and political normalcy that Kashmir may be looking forward to.
Yes, and if they're looking forward to that normalcy, was this perhaps also a response to the Indian government abrogating the section of the Constitution that basically took away, stripped the region of the rights that it had before Article 370, and then they're now governed by the Federation?
Look, terrorists are not very nuanced on constitutional law. That's not their wheelhouse in most cases. So I really don't think this was designed particularly around that issue. That issue was a couple of years ago now. So if there was response to the abrogation of Article 370, which was a sovereign decision taken by India according to its own laws, then it would have happened around 2019, 2020 as a response to that. We are almost 6 years down the line. It can't be a response to something that happened that long ago. So this is nothing but outright terrorism to instill fear, to take back any idea of or semblance of normalcy that Kashmir may look to enjoy in the coming time, and make sure that chaos, which was prevalent in the 90s, for example, when militancy was at its height, remains. We have to also remember very quickly that the last two large terror attacks that have been attributed to Pakistani groups were against military installations. This is the first one against the civilian target. And the last large civilian target or mass casualty terror event that took place was in 2000, so almost 25 years ago, where 35 people were killed. So this is definitely a change in direction for these groups, because they have moved on from targeting military installation or military personnel, and they've targeted civilians after a long period of time. And that shows intent that could be sort of normalized in the future as well.
And if this attack takes things, as you say, to a whole other level, how would you expect the Indian government to respond?
I think the response, look, it's difficult to say what kind of response will be, but I think there will be, and probably should be, some sort of response. It could be today, it could be next month. It's very difficult to say. The opportunity of responding needs to be clear when such an action is taking place. Right now there is, of course, a lot of pensiveness and there's a lot of anger in the public. But I think the response should be a bit more calculated and calibrated, and perhaps even taking international community onto its side when we are sort of thinking about whether to take a political decision when it comes to responding to this kind of attack, or you take a military decision. And then both of them are on the table. It will come down to the discretion of the politics of the day of what kind of action is taken in the future.
Yes, and would it be justified to also, many reports are pointing the finger of blame towards Pakistan. We know the ISI's involvement in previous incidents as well. Is it too early to point the finger in that direction?
It's definitely not early. Just 1 week ago, Pakistan's army chief gave a very vitriol-led speech that basically targeted India, targeted the issue of Kashmir, coming from the top personnel of the Pakistani army, and this taking place within 6 days of that speech, may not well be a coincidence. It's the idea or the ideation of how Pakistan views India has never changed, and is not bound to change anytime soon. So a lot of these terror attacks ultimately do attach to ecosystems in Pakistan, and which are state supported, and that unless there is an inherent policy change and a change of view on India inside Pakistani polity and society, this is a situation of continuation.
Yes, and in government-to-government relations, between India and Pakistan are already strained. How much worse can it get?
I mean, there are still pressure points, right? There are still India and Pakistan still have water security treaties, for example, that can be sort of can be mobilized against and targeted if push comes to shove. And you can also sort of take it to the next level internationally, to the International Court of Justice. There are a lot of options, but what India has sort of also mobilized in the recent past is the military option, targeting sort of these launch pads, terror launch pads across the line of control, and that kind of action, I think, if something happens, that kind of action is probably going to be most likely.
Yes, and what do you make of the timing of this attack? I mean, this happened during the visit to India by the U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, because the previous incident that happened in Kashmir happened a day before Bill Clinton was going to visit India.
Look, I think, J.D. Vance was in India. The Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in Saudi Arabia meeting Crown Prince Mohammed Salman. He had to cut his trip short and come back. In my view, these kind of, having studied these kind of actors for a long period of time now, the initial report suggested they did recce missions inside that part of Kashmir in the first half of April. So they have to see it, what's the most opportune time where they can deliver the most carnage. And the day of attack is chosen on those aspects, not necessarily who is visiting. The fact that Vice President was here is a happy coincidence, unfortunately, for the terrorists, because they get even more mileage out of these attacks.
Okay, Kabir Taneja, really appreciate your insights and analysis from Delhi. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.